Okay, we seem to have a problem with our camera sources here.
Audio counts though, right?
Yeah. Ryan, get in here.
Go put your mouse in the black part. I think you could pick a camera in there. Yeah. See the camera icon? Can we click something? There you go.
All right, disaster.
Click to start.
I guess camera's disconnected. All right. There's the camera choices, and the desktop one is working, but not any of the others. I think we shouldn't have touched the projector. We unplugged it. All right, folks. Technical difficulties. But we'll let you see Speedify while we're hanging out here. So, this is Speedify 16.6. Hey! All right. Although we have the auto exposure bug.
There we go.
There we go.
What's up, guys?
All right. How's your day going? We're having a rough time, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully you guys are still there. So anyway, I'm Alex.
Hey, Alex.
This is Mike.
Hey, guys.
We're some of the people who developed Speedify. And we are here to answer your questions. Also to make a complete mess of things. But you're probably used to that by now. So if you have any questions, you type them in the comments on either YouTube or Twitch, and we will see them and we will answer them. So, hey, Bonker John. Good to see you, man. Just, post us questions. We'll answer. Answers about Speedify are probably top priority, but honestly, if there's something else you want to talk about, go for it. Like, follow, smash those buttons. Welcome back. How was Vegas? So I was in Las Vegas last week, and it was pretty awesome. I mean, I didn't do Vegas, right? I mean, I ate at some barbecue joints.
That sounds fun.
Some fancy Italian restaurant. But other than that, I was just at the show.
Oh, not one
until
bet?
I didn't place one bet. Normally
I go, Alex.
And I'll put $25 down on blackjack and play till I lose it.
One hand
is often one hand. You know the odds. You can calculate how long it takes me, right?
Yes.
But I just didn't.
Okay.
But it was good. I saw everybody, right? So everybody in the industry in, one giant building.
What was the show about?
So National Association of Broadcasters. So I would say the prime focus is like all of the technology you need to do TV.
Okay. All right, that's interesting.
And of course, TV people are also doing stuff on the internet these days.
Yep.
They're sending film crews out and live streaming, so they need bonding and they need cellular. So, you had T-Mobile and you had Verizon, all those guys were there. And you had the camera makers and you had, us, and you had Peplink and you had LiveView.
Wow.
And you had the people who make the giant control boards.
Yes.
Right.
They're still in use.
All this cool,
that's really awesome.
Stuff. Right?
Yeah.
People selling the world's largest monitors.
I need those.
For use in your control room, right? With this huge monitor that 4 people sit in front of.
That's cool.
Doing the video editing live. So a lot of cool stuff across the entire, broadcast space. Like, hardware to build control rooms and the software to do bonding and the services you need. And a lot of satellite stuff, right? So it was a lot of fun. Exhausting, though. So while we wait for you guys to ask questions, I think I'd like to talk about what's new. All right. Oh, your crew often says Starlink. Do we mean all satellite internet like Leo and others, or Starlink per se, kind of like saying Kleenex when we make issues? I think we are careful to say Starlink when we mean Starlink.
Yes.
And, Leo and satellite service when we mean Leo and satellite service. Right now, Starlink kind of stands alone, and I don't expect it to last.
No.
LEO is coming. They said they were launching in July, but they are far short of where they meant to be with satellites.
Okay.
So I don't know if they're launching, if they're not launching. They really got tangled up. I think that the Blue Origin mishap, where Blue Origin failed to get that satellite into the right orbit, the FAA has grounded the Blue Origin New Glenn rocket until the issue is fully explained and fully fixed
That could take a long time.
to the FAA's approval. Last time, this happened to Blue Origin once before, and they got done in 2.5 months. They got the FAA convinced they found and fixed the problem, whatever that problem was. So, maybe it'll be the same. That's probably, with no idea what's going on, that's probably a good guess. But, they were supposed to be launching some rockets.
Yeah, and these are just the initial launch to test that they work, right? This is not the actual.
No, they're building the actual constellation now.
Okay,
great. They did the tests, 2 years ago, a year ago. Now they're building the constellation. And I think their goal was 1,600 satellites by the end of July.
Wow.
And I think they're at 260 satellites.
A little far behind.
It's funny, 7 years ago, if you said, Amazon's going to put up 270 satellites, we'd all be like, holy cow, that's a lot. But, SpaceX, Starlink, they now have more than 10,000 satellites.
That's insane to even think about.
They have twice as many satellites as everyone else put together. So it can seem like Kleenex, because whenever we're talking about satellites, we say Starlink.
Yes.
But that's
not always going to be the case.
Not really saying it's 2/3 of the satellites are Starlink. But yeah, we are doing a lot of work with some of the other guys. The geosynchronous in particular. Speedify can use a little tuning. We're doing that now. Because those, so the low Earth orbit ones like Starlink, actually they're moving from 550 kilometers up above the surface down to just 480. So that clips another half second off the latency, and it makes the beams tighter. The number of people sharing each satellite with you goes down.
Yes, that's great.
I don't remember. But so latency is super low there. But when you go to geosynchronous orbit, you only need 3 satellites to cover the whole world. But the latency is terrible, right? We typically see 850 millisecond latency. So it's tough. All right.
Yeah, funny you
Miles
say that.
says, I'd love to see SNR azimuth and elevation of the satellite I'm talking to, and when my terminal switches satellites. Let's look at Speedify 16.6, the latest version of Speedify. So we are connected to a Starlink, which we beat to death. We used so much data on this thing that we are now rate limited. Oops. And we dismissed the alert about it. But that's why backup, you'll see the automatic priority, which decides how much to use in given internet connection, has switched it to backup. Because Speedify has detected that this Starlink is rate limiting us. So when you scroll down, you get Starlink stats. And if you click expand, you'll see these are all of the stats that Starlink makes available to us with their API. And I'll talk some more about the API in a minute. So these high-level ones, how much download, upload, latency, uptime, how long has it been since it last rebooted? How much is obstructed? Yeah. In the next version, we're clipping this down to a reasonable number of decimal points.
That's really precise, right?
Well, I think that's mostly a rounding. I think that's a, floating point rounding thing. But yeah, so it shows you the exact angle it's tilted, which way Starlink says it should be tilted. It says what kind of plan you're on, whether or not you're roaming. Here you can see the overage limits.
Out of data.
That's Starlink telling us you are out of data. You are being slowed down for using it too much. GPS. We'll talk about it. So GPS stuff is all going away. So we never used it.
No, absolutely not.
I'll take a pause. But Starlink announced last week that in the API for the routers, the gRPC API, they are taking away the location stuff, and they're right to. So the way location works, every one of these satellite dishes has a super accurate GPS antenna. And by default, if somebody like us connects to it, it won't tell us your location. But you can go to Starlink and say, turn on GPS location on my router. And if you did that, then computers on your local network could ask for your GPS location and get it. Turns out that is not fine-grained enough security. You turn it on, say your Starlink app can show you where you are.
Yes.
And now web pages that your kids open can potentially connect, pull your exact location down to a couple meters.
Scary stuff.
It was scary stuff. So we've never used it. Nowhere in here, if you look, does it show your GPS location. I once wrote a Python program, see if it worked, and was able to pull the exact location of our dishes on the roof. And I was like, that doesn't seem right. So Starlink has taken that away, and they're right to take that away, and it doesn't affect us at all because we never used it because it was creepy, and we try not to do creepy things here. Continuing the tour, and then there's the hardware section, which explains which model of device you have and what version of software it has and things like that. And then you get to start dish alignment. So this is a neat little thing we have built to help you align your dish, and it's going to keep getting nicer, and we have improvements for next release. And it's hard to say because this dish is basically correctly aligned, but there's two dots here. One, the direction that Starlink says your dish should be pointed, and the other one is the way my dish is pointed. And they're basically on top of each other. So alignment looks good. But if they were off, this wizard would guide you through, stop pointing south, you should be pointing north, you should turn it, right 75 degrees or whatever. And if you're doing this on a ladder, a little cute, I don't think you guys will be able to hear this, but there's an audio tracking feature where it makes little pinging noises. So you can tell as you get closer and closer, the little sonar sounds. So you have a little headphone while you're up there moving it and have a pretty good idea. So the thing is, one may say, but aren't all these features in the Starlink app already?
Yes.
Sort of. But the Starlink app can only connect to one Starlink.
That's right.
If you have two Starlinks, it's always going to connect to one of them. It cannot connect to the other. There's no way to tell which one to connect to. They try to grab the same IP address. You can't put two Starlinks on the same network unless you put Speedify on it. So Speedify will list, right now I'm only on one, but we have two Starlinks here. I'm only connect to one. You can pick each one and get the stats and control for that Starlink. And then you can pick the other one and control it. So fun and games. However many Starlinks you have, you can monitor, manage, and control all of them at once from in Speedify. All right. So can you... And by the way, more stuff is coming. There's a lot more Starlink stuff coming. I think there's going to be another release, something like this week, maybe beginning next week, with more cool stuff. I think there's going to be another release after that. At which point, Speedify will have everything, everything that Starlink exposes properly used. We're talking to other satellite companies. To a large degree, we're working with Starlink because they have such a nice API. If other people give us access to nice APIs, we would love to use other satellite companies. Any chance we'll ever have an open WRT option for Speedify that's included in the family plan? I need Speedify in my travel router so I can connect to my work VPN on a laptop. Can't do Speedify in VPN. There are cheaper plans for routers that aren't used all the time. I'll say that. I think they're listed on our website now. Also if you're load balancing. So yeah, there are cheaper router plans. All right. So Mike, you want to tell us about the what is it, this Starlink API that I'm talking about?
Sure. I mean, so those of you familiar with web services, Starlink uses a service called gRPC. Basically, it was RPC, which is remote procedure calls, which is a cheap way to do things online. And then Google kind of took it over. The G kind of stands loosely for Google, but it's kind of recursive in the name. But anyway, that's all well and good. So every Starlink is running these gRPC servers. And what that is going to do for anybody that wants to use it, it's a really fast option to talk to your router, basically. So what it's built on protocol buffers. So those protocol buffers are, if you guys are familiar with JSON or XML, it's a really, really small version to communicate rather than something bulky like JSON and XML. So what we did in Speedify is the language is agnostic. You could use any kind of programming language that you want to do these protocol buffers. So to use the API, Alex, get a little more detail, we had to kind of scour the internet and make some calls to the Starlink router itself to kind of see what the schema is. So once we see the schema, you kind of decide, what do we want? What does Speedify want to use in its API to talk to the router? So we query the Starlink API, we get the schema back that it's on the router, and then we kind of craft our own protobuf headers. And then in Speedify, we use C++, so we have a protobuf compiler that compiles it to C++, and we can make those calls back and forth on the network. But what's really, really cool is that it's built on top of HTTP2, which means it's super fast. And when you have this minuscule data in serial data talking over a local network, I mean, your Starlink is rapid firing. So it's really great for real-time stats. And that's what Speedify is doing here. So you could count on the data being, fast, reliable, and defined. So
right. Yeah. So all those stats that I showed in the Starlink are coming back over that. We're asking it to give us the stats, and it gives us logs, including, that we've been cut off for using too much data. Again. So it also tells us all the alerts in addition to the stats.
Yes.
There is something like 15 things that a Starlink can announce went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It can tell you that it has a low signal to noise ratio. It can tell you that it's overheating. It can tell you that the Ethernet cable or adapter you're using is not fast enough to keep up with it. So all of those too, we now capture and will show in Speedify. So you'll get a red banner saying, Starlink 2 overheating. Uh-oh. Good to know. So yeah, it's a funny thing because it's what the Starlink app itself is using.
Yes. And
Starlink hasn't, as far as I know, really said that everyone else can use it.
Not at all.
But, official partners are using it. There's nothing trying to stop us.
No.
I mean, they actually specifically announced, like, whoa, we are taking away the location stuff. And like, yeah, you should take away location stuff. It somehow had to be turned on, browser by browser, not router by router.
Right.
So yeah, security, complicated. They tried, they didn't quite get it right. They took it away. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
So what things aren't we pulling right now? What's available in the API that we're not using?
Oh goodness. Are we doing SNR, things like that?
I think if they're sending the SNR, I think we're showing it. I know there's some history. We build graphs of some of these stats but you can ask them for the last 15 minutes worth of history of latency and stuff.
Yes.
We're not using that yet. There's the obstruction map. As the Starlink, right? I've talked before about how it's a phased array.
Mm-hmm.
So it is tuning the beam it's sending out to be pointed right at the satellite as it goes by, which ends out meaning as the satellite goes by, it'll notice if it loses signal for a moment and then gets it back. And it slowly adds these up to notice if there's a certain angle where it always loses signal. It says there's an obstruction there.
Yep.
And so over time, it takes a long time, honestly, but you use it for a few hours and it will give you back a map of your sky and where there are objects. And you can end up, seeing like, oh, that's the tree.
Yeah, we really...
It's a sort of distorted, twisted version of the tree because it's from the Starlink's point of view. And it doesn't have stereo vision, right? But it's neat. So that's there. There's also some commands. The Starlink API lets you, tell the Starlink to reboot.
That I think is interesting. Even some of them allow you to move it in certain situations or shut down. Yeah, like
there's just stow, right?
Yeah,
some of the Starlinks have motors,
right?
Mostly the older ones. And if you want to shut it down, you're supposed to tell it to stow itself. It turns, and there's a command to do that, and we don't expose it. Would you guys use that? Is anybody using any of this Starlink stuff? I know that there are more than 5,000 people using Speedify and Starlink together.
Yeah.
So you're wondering why am I talking so much about it? It turns out that like an awful lot of you guys seem to really be liking it. So that's my obsession. And you will discover the second that Amazon Leo is out that I will be completely obsessed with Amazon Leo. Don't imagine that this is me being some kind of fanboy.
No, this is just readily available and it works great.
As soon as I can get my hands on the Leo stuff, I am going to be living and breathing Leo for 3 months. And then we'll have old Leo stuff supported. It's going to be awesome.
Do you anticipate it launching, being on track with Starlink? Do you see any upsides compared to Starlink that we would get from Leo?
Leo says they're going to support 1 gigabit speeds.
Okay.
I saw in person once in Barcelona one of the dishes, and it is, it is this big. It is the size of 2 Starlink dishes side by side. Like,
okay.
I think if you took 2 of the full size Starlink dishes and glued them together, my impression is you would have a dish the same size as Leo's. Any pricing comparison with Leo? Leo has not announced pricing yet. Several months ago, they said that they were going to redefine how inexpensive satellite internet could be. But then about 2 months ago, all that language disappeared off the website. And it changed to like the best low Earth orbit satellite for businesses or whatever. So there was a change in focus, and I think the prices they planned to charge probably went up, but
yeah.
I'm total outsider here. Yes, they have pictures of the dishes and the speeds they say they'll be able to hit, but there's still no pricing. They've signed up some companies to be resellers, like Elcom in UAE. But as far as I can tell, it's just announcements on a website. Seems like one could use 2 Starlinks with Speedify to compete with Leo download speeds. Yes. So increasingly, we're trying to figure out the pattern, right? I'll just be honest with you. Sometimes with Speedify, you put 2 Starlinks together and you get twice the speed of a Starlink. And sometimes you get 1.2 times the speed. Sometimes it's a very small upgrade. And I think a lot of it has to do with positioning. I think getting the dishes further apart, getting them pointed, even if they're only just, that little 20-degree angle, tilted opposite ways, instead of directing them the way Starlink says, which generally is point north if you're in the northern hemisphere, point south if you're in the southern hemisphere. I think you want maximum portion of the sky so that they grab different satellites.
That's great.
And decrease the chance that you're hitting the same maxed out satellite. But Starlink is not consistent. It's hard to put the story together because you'll test for an hour and be like, this is fantastic. I get 300 megabits every time.
Okay.
Yeah. And then someone else walks into the room and now it's 110 megabits. I'm like, what did you change? I'm like, I didn't change anything, right? And whatever, it's rearranging all the time. New satellites flying by, different models of satellites, right? I mean, and basically, right, they're doing a new version of their satellites like every month still, right?
But
some of the changes are tiny,
yeah,
right? A slightly better antenna, painted a different color, but like they're going as fast as they can, making little improvements to these satellites. And so they're different models of satellites you're talking to, and they won't tell you which one you're talking to.
I gotcha.
So it's very tricky. When are we getting Speedify CubeSats? I had a long conversation. So for $100,000, you can have a CubeSat, which is a satellite, say, twice the size of my coffee cup, launched into low Earth orbit, and it will stay there for about 3 years before it comes and burns up. It is apparently entirely possible to do, goofy things like, put a LoRa radio in a solar panel, and then if you get a directional antenna and point at the sky, when your satellite goes by, you'll get pinged by your satellite as it shoots by. Yeah, so it's $100,000 to get one little satellite up that stays up for 3 years. Yeah, I found a satellite company and I had this whole long conversation. It's tough though, as somebody pointed out to me, if you came up with something really profitable, probably Starlink would just add it to their next version of the satellite.
Unfortunately.
And you'd be so outgunned.
Just patent it first and then launch it.
But yeah, so if anyone has great ideas, if you had this much electronics in space,
what would you do?
What would you do? Right? Train AI. Wrong answer. But yeah, so one of the advantages of going to trade shows.
I'm in, yeah.
I walk right into the satellite launching people and I'm like, what would it take to launch my satellite? And they tell me because that's the business they're in. Can Starlink update the satellite firmware and software after deployment? Absolutely. They are so good at this stuff. I mean, the satellites beam down software updates to the dishes on the ground. They are absolutely beaming updates to the satellites up too. They're upgrading software all the time, and and they make big changes, right? They're changing the orbit from 550 kilometers to 480 kilometers. More than half the satellites have moved already.
Wow.
There's still 4,400.
That's insane.
In the old orbit, but they promised they're all coming down to the lower one, and that's got to require new software. All the timings and stuff are completely different. No problem.
So back to the multi-dish alignment. Do you think then in the Speedify update, our start dish alignment can factor in multiple Starlinks at the same time?
I'm working on it. I spent all weekend. I try not to announce it. I spent all weekend redesigning that wizard.
Oh, okay.
So it now takes into account that if you have multiple dishes, you actually want, my current suggestion is try to get one of them pointed the way that Starlink says. And one of them basically as different as you can, still seeing the sky. And now I'm working on layering in obstructions. I've got the obstruction maps.
Yeah.
And it seems to me like that if you can see that over on the left side, there's a lot of stuff obstructed, we should say try turning to the right a little bit, right?
See if we get better speed, yeah.
It's a little tricky because the maps, as I said, take a long time to build. So if you're pointing at obstruction, we say turn the other way so you don't see it. It's going to be a long time before we know whether you actually pointed even worse at, at the side of a barn instead of the tree.
Yeah.
So they're tricky things. All right. Guys, I'm asking as a completely new potential customer. I would like to go to Speedify. How much will it affect latency and how much will it cost me per month if I want to connect 2 Starlinks? All right. So if you're doing it with a router, like an open WRT router, which I would suggest, our $300 a year plan kind of would let you do that. You actually have some options. So we have the channel bonding, which is most of our users are using. This is where all your traffic goes through one of our servers. And this lets us packet by packet decide which internet connection to put it on. There's actually another option that we have I'm not going to change it because that would do bad things in the middle of our stream. But if you go look at bonding mode for setting, there's a local load balancer option. This would make each download or upload you do go to one particular Starlink. It's not great if what you're trying to improve is your video call, your live stream. But if you have lots of people trying to browse the web at the same time, that's not bad. Each image download can end out on a different Starlink, and you can kind of spread people out. So if you do the load balancing, there's no effect on your latency whatsoever. But the bandwidth doesn't add the same way. The fault tolerance isn't quite as good. But if you do the real bonding, the Speed Plus mode, we do all sorts of things to improve your live streams, protect your video calls. One dish can go completely out and you won't even notice, except for the alerts. But the effect on latency is generally small. But a little caveat here, right? So typically, if it's right, if the speed server is kind of right in line with where you would be connecting anyway, it's not much more than a millisecond that we add to your latency. It is possible to set up tricky things where you get it totally wrong. I've told this story before, but we had a professional streamer, who some of you might even know of, who was in Chicago and was streaming to the Twitch servers in Seattle. So he's in the center of the country and he's going to the west end of the country. But he was connecting to the Speedify server in New York. So we tripled his latency because every packet had to go from the center to the east and from the east to the west, where in fact, if you later when he contacted and says, why are you making my latency so bad? We said, wait, all your traffic's going to Seattle. Connect to one of our servers in Seattle. And you connect to a server in Seattle and everything was perfect and there was no latency at all. So I'm just saying, in general, if things are working well, we do almost nothing to your latency. But I can't say it does nothing because if you set things up wrong. So your traffic on the way to wherever it goes has to go through a Speedify server.
Yes.
That's the rule, right? So if you connect to a server in Europe while you're in the US, if you connect to a server in Asia when you're in Europe, you're going to hurt your latency.
Yeah.
But in general, I think we do a pretty good job of picking the best server for you based on where you are and the ping times you're seeing.
I think so.
So it should be good. All right. So, the Starlink API, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
How does it compare to other? Wait,
No.
Wait,
What?
is Mike wearing a Chicago Cubs hat? We need to stop to
No.
address this.
This is
No, it's a
champion.
champion. It's a champion hat. All right.
Now, Philadelphia or
Woo.
bust. Come on. My son tried to buy a New York Mets keychain. I said, I'm sorry, son. We can't do that.
I put on the Sixers game. I was so horrified I turned it off last night. And then right at the end,
Come on.
I hear people shouting.
Yes.
Shouting. It couldn't be. It was a great thing living in the city with thin walls. Turn on TV, and I caught the last 10 seconds, and I saw the Sixers win.
Embiid did his thing last night.
That was awesome. But of course, I couldn't watch it.
It is a brutal.
It is so brutal. We lose so often and so badly. Man, where were we? So how does this API compare to other APIs? Right. So Starlink's API, is it the best API you've ever used? What is the best API you've ever used?
So how does it compare? I mean, the Starlink API is weird. It's not an official public thing, but it's a well-known secret per se. And it's just a schema. It's just header files that you could use on the gRPC server. An API, which is, what a company wants you to use to interface with whatever app they're using or whatever server they're using. I mean, one of the cream of the crops is definitely Stripe.
Yeah.
I mean, Stripe has been around, I think for 20 years, I want to say, and they have listened to every customer complaint. So everything you possibly want to do as far as financial, transactions on the internet, Stripe is my gold standard that I go to.
It's not only a nice API, but now they've put out plugins for Claude.
Yes.
It's like Claude knows even more about it.
I am
just
yeah.
It just does it, right? I mean, there's no more being an expert in Stripe because Claude knows everything.
I love it and I hate it. Like, you're going to give AI access to essentially the most sensitive API in your stack. And it has full resources to read and write. If you wanted to analyze customer data, it could probably assist you in refunds. But, I mean, the security implications alone scare me so badly. Your entire business can be disrupted with a bad hack.
All right. I want to ask about Lyrics. Is that a subscription monthly or one time for any device when using tuner to other phones? All right, so let's see. So I assume you're using Lyrics on a phone. So if you buy a Speedify license just for yourself, the yearly single individual family, not even family, just individual license, it lets you use it on 5 devices. So you only need one device to put it on your phone and then have your phone join the cellular of another phone. And now you're bonding 2 cellulars together. So this is what I used to do. When I used to have a live stream series where I walked around Philadelphia talking to people. And I used a phone on AT&T with Speedify that would join the hotspot of another phone that was on Verizon. And it worked well enough, right? Let me tell you, 2 cellulars is 10 times better than 1 if they're on different carriers, because every carrier has dead spots.
Yes.
And if you get 2 independent carriers, make sure you don't get 2 one that's just reselling the other one. Their dead spots will be in different spots, and I was able to walk all over. But with pair and share now, you can do more complicated things. You can have 3 more phones that join your phone's Wi-Fi hotspot and all share their cellular. And now you can be on lots of them. Yeah. Want to talk about Lyrics tuner and license? Yeah, I think that's what we're doing. So a single Speedify license you can use on 5 devices. And that can be, your Mac and 3 cell phones, right? To join another cell phone's hotspot for any of these and use its hotspot does not need that other phone making the hotspot to have Speedify, right? Just yours. But of course, most devices can only join one hotspot at a time. So you only need 1 license on your phone for your phone to use its cellular and other phones. But the pair and share lets you set up a Wi-Fi hotspot on your phone and have like 4 other phones join and all share their cellular up to you. And then they need Speedify licenses, but 5 of them. I don't know what Larix's license is. I was using the free version for all my live streams.
It looks like they have monthly subscriptions, or you could purchase a yearly subscription if that helps you.
And maybe I bought a yearly and forgot about it. To be honest. So I don't know as far as what their subscription is. I wonder if I'm still paying for Larix Broadcaster. I'm going to go check after this call. Bad. Flora might save me a bunch of money here.
I'm just waiting for our AI assistant to be able to check our bank accounts every day. Like, Alex, you still using this? You sure?
I mean, I'm pretty sure. I tell you, Claude, I gave Chrome the Claude plugin, and I gave Chrome Desktop permission to use it. And
how's it working?
I don't let it go crazy, but I'll just be, I'll be looking at our webpage. I'll just go to Claude and be like, I'm looking at this webpage. Right. The LinkedIn stuff, right? LinkedIn charges all this money to use their API. The minimum charge is $100 a year. But you can just have the browser open and tell Claude, like, I'm logged into LinkedIn.
Go research.
Go link all these people. Go look all these people up and pull out any contact info you find.
Love it.
And it's not lightning fast. It's surprisingly like watching a person read the page and click around. But I go get coffee while this thing goes around cutting and pasting information.
It's so funny. Did you see the new article in Meta? It's actually recording all of its employees' keystrokes and mouse movements to train the AI models to do the same.
So creepy.
Hey, if you're coming into, at least it's their own employees, not us, right?
Right. So obviously, my first thought is employees shouldn't have to put up with that. My second thought is that employees of Meta have brought it down on themselves. Right?
Yes.
You could have respected someone else's privacy earlier.
Respect your own.
It's a little late to complain, guys. It's kind of like when OpenAI complains about someone not respecting their intellectual property.
Sure, okay.
What intellectual property? You scraped a bunch of other people's content. And
everybody's content.
Everybody's content.
But I do feel that the browser plugins, like data like that, we'll train them to be a little quicker in the future.
Have an idea. Why not DC group for people not knowing how bonding works? Or maybe IRL streams help out there.
That's why we're here.
Yeah. Kind of try and do that. More specific suggestions.
Yeah.
We're open to it. All right. All right, I took your advice and got a powered hub to use USB tethering.
Nice.
Of 2 cell phones for Ethernet instead of wireless hotspot on my home PC. As you said, performance is much better. Nice. Also, app on phone using bonding system, correct? DC make easy when guys not online for times. DC. Yeah, the app. Our Speedify phone. Our Speedify app on the phone really does bonding of whatever connections it can get, which usually is just Wi-Fi and cellular. If you want 2 cellular, you join the cellular of another phone. You join the Wi-Fi of another phone, and you're on its cellular, or of a MiFi or something like that. Some phones also support a USB device. You get a USB Ethernet, and then run that to whatever you have. That can work. I've heard rumors that some of the newer, like Google Android phones, you can configure their tethering to show up saying that they are an Ethernet router, and that you can trick an iPhone into using an Android phone as a tether to give it a third internet connection.
That's pretty sick.
But my Android phone is apparently one generation too old for that, and I haven't seen it work. But it's just time for me to buy a new Android phone. But there's nothing wrong with it other than that. I got I have an older Pixel.
So waiting for like a USB-C like cellular modem you could just put into your iPhone that connects another SIM card and lets you use the data on that too. Why aren't we in that world yet?
Because Apple doesn't want to. Apple just doesn't support the drivers, right?
Yep.
So the reason you can't tether an Android phone to a Mac is that Apple just doesn't want to support the NDIS driver. I mean, the driver's right there. Apple knows exactly what they need to do to make Android phones work perfectly on Macs.
Yeah.
And they're just not doing it. And briefly, someone open source implemented it, but then Apple locked down the kernel and said no more external drivers. I think for security reasons, but they say security reasons, they cut everyone else off, and then anything that doesn't make them money never gets done again. So it is tough.
But if they're not going to steal it, they'll make them money. Forget it.
All right, a new idea for a YouTube video. Mm-hmm. Why not system how you use phone with app and hub tethering? Yeah. A lot more demos of tethering things together and showing how they work. All right, Scott Jordan, open up the native APIs. Yeah, one problem with the APIs, and this really came out Twitter, which, of course now Elon Musk owns, and Elon Musk owns Starlink. So, Twitter kicked off the API thing, right? They were the first major web service to offer APIs. Anything you want to do, you can do through an API. And people built all these amazing apps for Twitter.
Yep.
And then when Twitter's like, wait a minute, we're not making enough money. Those bastards are leeching off us. They cut off the APIs.
Yep.
Right? And there's no legal...
No.
It's
like a public contract,
There was no contract, right? And even if there was a contract, Twitter would have put in it, we can end this anytime we want. And so they cut everyone off. And so I don't know. It's discomfort. Let devs make money without approval first. Now, why would they let that slide? Better be App Store compliant. I was reading the incredible thing about Steve Jobs and how he didn't want anyone else's software on his beautiful iPhone. And that he hated the idea of an App Store. And that the developers at Apple secretly worked on it for a year.
No way, really?
Yeah, because they knew he was eventually going to come around. But that he was pushing a plan where Apple would hire thousands of additional software developers to build every app that anyone could need on a phone. Because he didn't trust anyone else to do a good mobile app besides,
Look, at the time, the number one app was the fart app for 2 years. Do you blame him? I mean...
Yeah, apparently that went over like a lead balloon with Steve Jobs.
I mean, he got us to this point where we have an ecosystem we trust and it's polished.
All right. What is the average latency increase you get by using Starlink? Starlink's latency is pretty good. It's in the 20s. I'm trying to get over there. Although I'm rate limited,
I think it's still pulling.
They're affecting latency. So let's go look. Boop. So this Starlink, it's a real Starlink. It is rate limited because we use too much. They chopped us down to low speed. But I'm still seeing 47 milliseconds of latency.
Look how steady it is compared to a cellular device.
Yeah, it's steady. That's right. Yeah, the interesting thing is we're not actually stressing the link because it won't let us go full speed. Yeah, you can see we're not really using it to backup, but
same with cellular for the most part.
Yeah, so the interesting thing is, and then there's, if you click here, you can go see the latency that they report. And it's always lower than what Speedify reports. So here, jumped 38. It was in the 20s, now it's 38. But Speedify is seeing 47. And the reason is that they are just pinging through Speedify to like the first router at the base station. It's not all the way to the internet. So if you actually go through, you'll never get a ping as low as what they show you. But yeah. So I mean, I can tell you what it is. So Comcast. But generally, it's not that big a difference, right? I mean, the Comcast, we're seeing, 30 milliseconds. Sometimes it goes as low as 24, up to 50. I mean, we're really using the Comcast, which is one of the reasons it's jumping around. I don't think the moral story is so much that Comcast is unstable. It's that this video stream is going over the Comcast while we're pinging. So with a decent amount of load, Comcast like 30 milliseconds. Starlink with no loads like 40 milliseconds. So yeah, if you want a rough estimate that Starlink has 10 more milliseconds of latency, that's probably right. It's ballpark.
Yeah, I think that's acceptable too. Yeah.
If you do a scientific study and determine that 15 milliseconds is the right answer, I believe that too. But yeah, we're talking 10, 15 milliseconds. The Starlink, unlike other satellite services, the way it works, unless you're in the middle of an ocean, is you are hitting the nearest satellite and bouncing straight down to the nearest ground station. And they are trying to put so many ground stations, right? So you're going up 480 kilometers and then down 480 kilometers, and then you're being put on the internet. Other stuff, the geosynchronous satellites, if you're in the US, you are going to a satellite that's 30,000 kilometers over Colombia, and then back down to a base station that's always in Texas. So that's the closest we can get to Colombia. Right, so Colombia is the closest spot over the equator to the US. And then the closest spot to Colombia in the US is Texas. So your packets always come down in Texas, and then they have to go wherever they're going from there. So if you're just hitting Google, that's fine, because Google put copies of their site everywhere, including copies in Texas. So you're just on the internet when you make it to Texas. But if you're specifically streaming to Seattle, well, then your packets have to make it on the ground, right? So if you're using a satellite dish in Seattle, a geosynchronous satellite dish, to try to stream to a server in Seattle, you're going way out to space, back down to Texas, and then back through the fiber all the way down the block. So it can be pretty far. And that's how you end out with 800-900 millisecond latency on these geosynchronous systems, which is terrible for calls, right? If you're doing like a video call, everyone will interrupt each other all the time, and it's really disruptive. But it is surprisingly not bad for web browsing. I mean, yeah, you click a link and it takes 2 seconds to load, but
Yeah, what cares?
It actually doesn't bother me.
Yeah, that's all right.
We come from the dial-up delay, but then you spend some time reading the page. It's terrible for gaming, terrible for live calls, but downloads and stuff could be okay. I know VPNs that give internet access without an active data bundle. Could you recommend something like Speedify Bundle, which patches a dropped connection with its own data if it detects an outage? No. We worked pretty hard to get, we got all these negative acknowledgments and redundant mode. It's one of the funny things when we first came out, right? There were people who were saying, holy cow, you run Speedify just on one internet connection, it doubles your speed. And other people came along and said, I just tried it, did not. you're obviously astroturfing, you work for the company. None of these people work for us. We're like, what's going on? And it turns out that if your internet connection is dropping 1 or 2% of your packets, or 3% of your packets, that cuts your internet speed by 50 to 75%. And Speedify smarts of resending packets that it knows are missing before TCP has noticed they're missing can, in a lot of cases, double your internet speed. If you're in that situation, if 4% of your packets are being dropped, Speedify will double your internet speed. But if none of your packets are being dropped, Speedify may actually slow you down 5%, right? So that's where we're at. No, we built this because it didn't exist.
Right.
There's no free software. But we give you 2 gigs a month for free. Any playing, we give you 5 devices on a paid plan. I think it's all very, very reasonable. All right, we're at 11 o'clock, and I think there are people waiting outside the studio to talk to me. All right, so thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mike. I know you're really busy.
Thanks for having me.
We got to go mess around with Starlinks on the roof some more, see how accurate my little obstruction maps are. And it's going to be awesome. We'll try to get you some more software early next week. All right. Thanks, everybody. See you all online.